Behind us is the south wall of the monastery. Until 1930, there were 2 stories of chapels and cells along that wall, and then in 1930, all of those buildings were torn down. The building behind us was completed in 1951, so it was 21 years of construction. The purpose of the building was foremost to have a better place for the library. The first 2 floors have cells for the fathers, refectory, visitors, guest rooms, and rooms for the storage of the icons, but the entire top floor was dominated by the library.
My name is Nicholas Pickwoad, and I'm a book conservator and a historian of books, bookbinding in particular. I was invited to visit the monastery in 1998, 2 years after the St. Catherine Foundation was created. Well, the condition of the books was obviously one of the worries of the Archbishop when he first approached Prince Charles to raise interest in the protection of the library. And I suppose the single most important problem is the fragility because of the dry air, that the organic materials often become very brittle, so handling the books needs to be done very carefully. The aim of the project is, in a sense, to do what the last 1500 years have done already, which is to preserve the library in St. Catherine's and to protect the books in a physical sense by boxing and protecting the more fragile material that way by shelving them in a way that is better for them. The most remarkable thing in the history of the Codex Sinaiticus, in a way, is the discovery in 1975, after a fire in the monastery, of a room filled with fragments and pieces of manuscript, which contained, amongst the other many thousands of other pieces, 12 complete leaves of the Codex Sinaiticus and a number of fragments, about 25 fragments. The early history of the Codex is still not fully understood, but it is believed to be one of the 50 Bibles commissioned by the Emperor Constantine to be given to 50 new churches in his empire. It was written sometime in the mid-4th century. It is the earliest complete copy of the New Testament in Greek to have survived.
This is one of the new finds of Codex Sinaiticus in the St. Catherine's, and it has been a second use, and the second use was a book cover. So it is a single leaf. The full width of the leaf is here if we unfold these, which is the intention. The thread here is a tacketing method of just holding the turn-ins of the book cover. And then we can pull this straight through. So this is going through 3. So what we've got to do now is start to humidify the leaf so that we can open it out for scholarship and for reading. And now we can look at this. Okay, I'm going to take the tension out of this. I mean, this debris isn't affecting what the scholars can read. I mean, it's pretty good, actually. I mean, we'll have to look at this a second time, but basically it's going okay. We move the weights down. We haven't got another one of these anywhere, have we? This is the leaf that you saw the other day, which we had humidified and unfolded. It looks as though that was the spine of the book cover, and these are the head and tail turn-ins, so they're quite clean. But the area that was the exterior of the book cover, flesh side out it was, there is grimed. We have a small fragment here. It does look the flesh side, I think. I wish I was the other way up. I could flick it better. So this is what I've got to talk to Father Justin about, whether this kind of debris is interfering with the text. There's generally a rule in conservation of these kind of items where you say that institutional dirt can be removed, but evidential dirt must not be removed. But in this case, we've got some early debris, which, as it was a book cover, and it's actually covering text. And I think what will happen is Father Justin will say the text must be clear, but don't completely remove, clean it up like a Chinese laundry or something.
What we're trying to do here is to make a detailed outline of the fragment once it's been humidified and straightened, based on a grid, on an underlined grid supplied by the British Library, on which we try to place the fragment.
We know that before the 18th century, the manuscripts were in three principal areas. The copies of the Gospels and the services were kept either in cupboards inside the church or in rooms adjoining the church, as they are to this day. There was also a central library that was used for the books and manuscripts for general reading. In 1728, Archbishop Nikiforos Marthalis was elected Archbishop of Sinai. He was both a skilled calligrapher and bookbinder, and he had a special interest in music manuscripts. So when he was elected Archbishop in 1728, he had a great concern for the library, and he ordered that new quarters be built for the library and that all the manuscripts would be gathered together from the different parts of the monastery, and he commissioned two of the monks to make the first catalogue of the entire collection.
The Codex Sinaiticus project with the British Library is just a particular case of this, where the manuscript is in 4 locations. By digitizing the parts of the manuscripts that we have here, and by going to those locations where the diaspora parts are located and digitizing those, we can digitally and virtually recreate the manuscript in its entirety. The camera produces what we call a raw file, and then we apply a predetermined set of parameters to it, which will correct for the color and the density, and we will crop each page to remove any extraneous material. So the system can be set up and will be set up to prevent the manuscripts from having to be got out from their shelves.
One of the things I've been trying to achieve in directing the conservation work in the project is to make sure that we have a group of people who have worked here, who know the library, who know the fathers and whom the fathers know, who can come back to continue to work in the future, and in particular to make sure that a number of those young conservators are Greek.
Altogether, there must have been something like 35 different conservators from all around the world who have participated in that. So basically, assessment consisted in teams of 4 or 6 people visiting the monastery, staying here for a month or occasionally for 2 months, with breaks in between, of course, and going through, examining, let's say, each single manuscript and recording information initially on paper forms, but then at an advanced stage on the computers directly.
This is one of our most exceptional manuscripts. It is Arabic 514. It dates from the 9th century and consists of commentaries on the scripture and lives of the saints. But many of the leaves of this manuscript are palimpsests, where the leaves were used for a second time. The original writing is in Arabic, in Greek, and in Syriac, and these texts date from the 5th to the 7th centuries. Even though this is such an exceptional manuscript, it just has a simple cardboard wrapper. The Arabic text underneath is one of the earliest surviving Arabic texts in the world and of extreme importance, and could be recovered by scientists using special digital photography techniques. This is the sort of manuscript that desperately needs the stainless steel cases that have been commissioned by the St. Catherine Foundation. I was very worried about how we were going to properly box and then move the entire contents of the library both securely and swiftly. But with the help of experts in England who have experience in moving important libraries there, we have come up with a very good plan. We will box the entire new library, and then we will remove the shelves and place those boxes along the outer perimeter of the room. We will then have to wrap each of the early printed books in acid-free tissue and tag each with a code, and those will be placed in plastic storage boxes horizontally. That will then remove them from this room. We will have special stairways built to allow easier access to the upper level where the manuscripts are, and then we will have professional conservators come who will place each of the manuscripts in a conservation phase box. They will remain in those boxes not just for the renovation of the library, but they will be stored in those boxes when we have the new library. The manuscripts will be kept at the lower level of the room, either behind cupboards or in stainless steel boxes, and it is the early printed books on open shelves at the upper level of the room that will retain the appearances of the exceptional library that it is.
This network of book conservators all sharing the same kind of view of how you approach book conservation. Such a network has been created, I mean, naturally. The people that we have come here were now friends.
I think the conservator's job in the terms of the design of a new library, which is what this effectively is going to be, is to make sure that the new library does as much as possible to protect the books. And one of the things which I was particularly keen to include in the design is the principle of what's called passive control, so that you use the design of the building to stabilize the conditions within it. Now, we know that for 1,500 years the books have been fairly well protected here. What we want to do is make minor improvements and adjustments to that. By simply lining the walls with 5 centimeters of a very hygroscopic concrete block, we can even out the fluctuations in humidity in the room. But by putting simply white tiles on the ceiling, you remove the solar gain, heat gain through the roof. That will last forever. There is nothing to stop it working, there is nothing to break down. So we are using the building to create the conditions which will be best for the manuscripts.
Unfortunately, we do not have architects' records of the building, and so we do not know details about how it was constructed. We have had to probe in different areas to see how the 6th century wall was tied into the 1951 flooring, and details like that then become critical in talking about a renovation of the building. The architect has come up with an excellent design for the renovation of the inside of the building, but you can see that the outside was never completed. You see parts with exposed brick, with stonework, with concrete. You even see reinforcing rods that still project from the building. So he was also asked to make a modification of the building that would be with as little intrusion as possible, but that would improve the design of the building and harmonize it better with the more traditional Sinai buildings that you see in the foreground behind me.